You're tuned in to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Welcome back to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast, where we are showcasing the coolest brands and gifts while featuring movers and makers. I'm your host, Lenore, and this episode is for all my fellow wine lovers like myself. So I started to notice recently that I'm not drinking as much wine as I used to, and sometimes I really only want one glass, so I find myself opening up a bottle and never finishing it. So that's when I grab a wine stopper, cover the bottle, throw it in the fridge. Yes, I'm that person that throws red and white in the fridge because I want them both cold. Love me, hate me. Get over it. The only problem that I have is that sometimes I never get a chance to get another glass before the wine is spoiled because you have to drink that in the next 2, maybe 3 days max if you're lucky. So I'll be honest with you, I'm tired of throwing wine down the drain, like bottle to bottle to bottle. It's such a waste of money. And if you feel the same way that I do, then you have to check out Repour Wine Saver. This is the first wine preservative product on the market using oxygen absorption to eliminate all of the oxygen in an opened bottle of wine. To share more about Repour, we've invited their founder and president, Tom Lutz, to the show. Tom, welcome to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to finally save my wine and not waste this money, which, by the way, I don't buy like hundreds of dollars of wine in a bottle. I'll be like $14 for my 119 Crimes that I love. But I'm excited that I don't actually have to throw it out because I never get a chance to finish it. So tell us a little bit about Repour and what makes this different than other wine preservative systems that are out there.
Yeah, so I like to call oxygen the frenemy of wine. It's a friend. So when you let a bottle sit in your cellar or buy a vintage that's a few years old, that's where oxygen is the friend. It's letting the wine age and bring out some very interesting characteristics of it. But oxygen becomes an enemy as soon as you open that bottle of wine. So when you have a leftover bottle of wine for the night and you just leave it on the counter, oxygen is in there and it's literally turning the alcohol that was in your wine into vinegar. So that's why it tastes so bad. That's why you're throwing it out after a day or two sitting on the counter. So the whole key to oxygen to wine preservation and keeping your wine fresh is getting the oxygen out of the bottle. So where Repour comes in, which looks like just a little stopper, inside of it is actually an active ingredient that removes oxygen. So to use a Repour stopper is really simple. You just remove a little foil seal at the bottom of the stopper, and then put the stopper in your bottle. Seems simple, but what's actually happening inside is we're removing all of the oxygen that's in the bottle. So that's where other wine preservation things that have been on the market before us. Some remove a little bit of oxygen, some don't really do much at all. And that's where really we are different than every wine preservation gimmick or apparatus that you've tried in the past, is we actually get rid of all the oxygen.
All of it, like not even leaving 1%.
No, 100%. And it's actually so effective that when you come back to that bottle of wine after a few days, you may have to think of it like you're opening the bottle for the first time. The wine may need to actually reopen back up again, just like you opened the bottle for the first time.
Oh, and like let it sit for a hot second.
Not real long, but just enough to get a lot of air, oxygen back into the wine and bring out all those aromatics, those flavors, the wonderful smells that we have with the wine.
So Tom, were you wasting so much money dumping red and white wine down the sink?
Yeah, so my story is I'm actually a chemist by training. I have a PhD in chemistry, and I've always kind of been in the world of product development and where science meets real world problems. And 5 years ago, we had a newborn son. My wife was just starting to drink wine again, literally 2 weeks old, the son was. And I was up with keeping an eye on him in the middle of the night, giving my wife a chance to rest a little bit. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was thinking about wine and the wine we just poured down the drain. And that's really where the idea came from. I thought, there's got to be a better way of getting rid of oxygen out of the bottle. I knew wine was that kind of friend-enemy scenario, rather than all these gimmicks and things that don't really work that were out on the market.
So I know this is wine saver, right? What if I open up a bottle of champagne and I don't finish that? Can I use the Repour wine saver for that as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. So technically, it will remove all the oxygen and it won't do anything with the carbon dioxide. So you're not impacting that at all. The one negative today is that pressure that can build up in the bottle from it being carbonated can pop the stopper off the top. So we actually have people that are duct taping it to the top and using it for sparkling wines, champagne or other sparkling wines. But we're actually making a clamp that will hold it on in the future. So stay tuned for that one. So today I don't technically endorse doing that because it's kind of buyer beware, use at your own risk, right? It might pop off. But it will actually preserve the wine and sparkling wine, keep it fresh.
Honestly, maybe I will put it on there because I never get a chance. I always have a problem trying to like pop that corkscrew. So maybe I'll do that to make it easier and like actually have that champagne go everywhere for a picture. But not to save it, because then if I'm not, it's not going to save. It's just going to go everywhere else on the floor.
Right.
So you said chemist, right? How many times did you have to figure out if this worked or not? Like how many labs, how many testings? How did it go?
Yeah, so I did a ton of work for about a year, trying some different formulas, different versions of the product to really find what I thought worked extremely well. I enjoy wine. I've gotten the opportunity since I've been in this world now for a few years to try some really incredible wines, but I don't consider myself an expert palate by any means. So after a year, we said, we don't want to come out with a product that's a gimmick. If it works, let's do it. If not, let's not. So we actually took it to a local sommelier group that did some blind taste tests on it, and quite humbly, it performed way better than I ever expected it would have. So it's like, oh, I guess we really are into something. So at that point, we started turning it into a product and figuring out all the packaging and what it was going to look like and all that. And so we've only been selling for about 3.5 years. And it's really all been word of mouth. The opportunity to come on great podcasts like what you're doing has really helped spread the word a little bit. But it's really just people telling other people about Repour, how we're kind of building our brand organically and slowly.
So, Tom, I'm going to do my own experiment to see how long my wine lasts, right? Because I think everything is a little different. But what is the average? Usually a bottle lasts, 2 days in fridge?
If you're lucky, in the fridge. So the coolness of the fridge is actually slowing down some of those processes that turn it to vinegar. You don't have to store your wine in the fridge. So if you have a red that you want to leave out on the counter or keep it room temperature, Repour will work equally well in a refrigerated environment or on the countertop. It's really interesting to me. For whatever reason, people in the wine industry have wanted a test for 6 weeks. So we have thousands of reviews of people that have come back to me and said, we're great for 6 weeks. So I actually recently had someone come back and say, I tested it for a year and came back and the wine was great. I'm not necessarily endorsing a year. I'm trying to, we're here to enjoy the wine, open it, kind of consume it on your pace. But yeah, days, weeks, months, absolutely, it should keep it fresh.
Well, my experiment I thought was going to last a week. I cannot leave an empty bottle of wine out for longer than that. No way. It's going to get drank. I'm going to drink it. Someone's going to drink it. So I guess my week experiment, that's where my science is going to stop, Tom, with my 1 week.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the cool things that people have come back and told me is, now I can open multiple bottles of wine. So, you might have that Chardonnay or one of your sparkling wines with duct tape holding it today. But you might want a red wine with dinner tonight instead of what was already open. So I'm hearing more and more people, it's actually changing the way they're enjoying their wines, letting it pair with different meals differently, or trying different wines all at the same time, rather than I have to drink this one wine because it was open.
Yeah, I have to say, because because it says 4 in a pack, that is definitely encouraging me to be able to diversify or not finish the red today, maybe go a little bit of white or change it up. Now, there's 4 in a pack. How much is this?
So we sell 4-pack. We also sell a 10-pack. The 4-pack, if you hop on our website, repour.com, is $9.99. So about $2.50 a stopper. The 10-pack retails for $18, $17.99.
Well, that's definitely gonna, this $10 saves the entire bottle I just dumped. So, and I can continuously reuse this. This is a stupid question, right? Does this thing absorb a certain amount of oxygen where after X amount of uses, I need to get a new one?
No, that's a great question, actually. So 1 stopper is good for 1 full bottle of wine. There's an active ingredient in here. I like to kind of compare it to like a tank of gas, right? So once it's gone, it's gone. So it's designed around 1 full bottle of wine, consumed glass by glass over 5 pours. So there's enough material in there. If you had 1 glass of wine tonight and you came back over 5 weeks, for example, and you had 1 glass a week, your last glass should be as fresh as your first glass.
Awesome. Okay, so I know I usually do half and half, so I can get a couple of different uses out of each one of them then.
Yeah, the real trick is if you leave this, once I remove this foil seal, if it's sitting on the counter, it's pulling oxygen from the air around us. So that active ingredient is starting to get chewed up. So you can stretch it to multiple bottles, but you need to make sure you put it right on the bottle and don't leave it out on the counter for an extended period.
Is there a way that I would be able to know that, like, not the chemicals, but the formula inside won't absorb as much more oxygen? Like, does it, those things that, like, when they turn blue, you got to replace, or when they turn white, you have to replace?
Yeah, it's a question that comes up all the time. It's something that's technically very challenging. We're working on, kind of an indicator, hopefully someday, but at this point, there's nothing in the near horizon to show it. So that's why we kind of say one stopper is good for one bottle, so you don't have to track it. If you want to stretch it from one bottle to the other, and there's some math that we can do to track how much air it's been exposed to, but that's a little bit harder. So we just say one stopper is good for one bottle of wine.
Honestly, thank you for telling me the tip of because I was about to rip off the seal at the bottom right now just to do it, and then I was like, I'm not gonna do it. Good thing I did not do it, because I would have wasted a stopper on nothing today. Sorry.
Right.
I would have wanted to drink that. Now, any other tips or tricks that we should know when using the Repour?
Yeah, the biggest one is the wine needs to be stored vertical. So that's the one challenge, is that for the Repour to work properly, if wine were to come in contact with it, it doesn't absorb the oxygen anymore. So it needs to be stored in the vertical orientation. So instead of trying to lay it down in your fridge, it has to stay standing upright. That's probably the biggest trick. And then the only other real thing is because it's so efficient at removing all that oxygen. Again, if you have a more aromatic wine, you may come back to it and say, it doesn't have all those aromas right away. Just give it a little swirl on the glass. And if you think of it as if you're opening a bottle for the first time, it'll perform exactly as it's supposed to.
Awesome. And Repour.com. How has this really changed this has definitely changed the way people have consumed wine. Like, how many times have you now saved everything?
We've gone through, we've done tests on thousands of bottles of wine. And one of the biggest things that comes back to me from consumers, people at home, it's kind of our story too. It's a busy Tuesday night. We've got kids events, we got work in the morning. I'd like a glass of wine, but who knows when we're going to get back to that bottle. So I'm hearing two things there. One, somebody's opening a bottle of wine that they wouldn't have otherwise opened, just to have that one glass of wine and relax a little bit. Or it's not the cheapest wine in their cellar. It's one that they'd like to enjoy, and they know that when they come back to it, they'll be able to enjoy the rest of the bottle instead of just that one glass and then throw it all away. You also hear the stories about people having multiple bottles open and being able to pair food and things like that differently as well. The one trick that I've heard, and again, this is not a technical endorsement, formal endorsement, because it kind of it depends on how you track how much it's been exposed to. But if you don't have another bottle that you're going to open that night, just fill up that empty bottle with water and put the Repour back in it. So that'll save it. That'll keep that, the fact that you remove the foil seal, it'll let you stretch it to multiple bottles.
I didn't even think about that. Like, what if I don't need it anymore?
Right.
I'm just going to have to open up another bottle, Tom.
There you go.
Like, I'll just happen to have another sip.
Yep.
So thank you for that. So you can grab your Repours at Repour.com. That's Repour.com. Check them out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Repour Wine Saver. And once again, Tom, can you let us know the prices for the 4-pack and the 10-pack?
Yeah, a 4-pack is $10 and the 10-pack is $18. So if you go to our website, there's actually a sign up. You can get 10% off your first order as well.
Are we going to see these in stores anytime soon? Is that the next step?
Yeah, they're in a lot of stores. We're actually in some tremendous restaurants around the country and world, actually. So you might start to see them in your local restaurant as well.
Awesome. I'm going to have to keep my eye out for these. Once again, Repour.com. That's Repour.com. Tom, thank you for creating an incredible product that I like. This is something I'm going to use, so I'm really excited that I didn't rip off that seal once again. So remember, guys, don't rip off the seal at the bottom if you are not using it just yet. Only when you're trying to cover and close your wine, please. Heads up and standing up, not sideways. That's what we learned today. Now that is a wrap on another episode of the Brand Ambassador Select podcast. I'm your host, Lenore. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. More at brandambassadorselect.com, and we will see you next time.